Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lunch and Learn. Today, we are talking about classroom management strategies. This is part two of the series, but if you weren't here for part one, it's okay. It can stand alone. It was just more of this discussion. So don't worry about that if you missed it before. We will go ahead and get started. I'm Laura Thompson, and I'm an instructional designer at Stanton campus is my primary campus, but I sometimes am on other campuses, or I'm always available college-wide through Teams or email if you need any support. Now, my collaborator is Jenna Cinnamon. Unfortunately, she didn't feel well today, so she's not able to make it. But I did want to make sure I gave credit where credit was due, that she was a hearty collaborator in this process. However, I did see a joke today that said that what's better than giving credit where credit is due? Cash. Always cash. So I thought, well, but I just want to make sure that I recognize Jenna's contributions. So here's our agenda for today. We're talking about instructor presence, developing course community, and interactive strategies. Now you say, what does that have to do with classroom management? Well, it's a whole lot of that front loading. What are the things that we can do to help those students and help make our courses engaging and promising courses for our students? So maybe we head off some of those issues. Now, I know that there's still going to be a student or two who might be extra inflammatory, and we have some college policies for that. But today we're going to focus a lot on really how do we front end load this to help maybe those students who just don't know how to behave in a class. So now they need a little more structure so that they're remembering this, or they know that these are the expectations in college. Maybe their high school expectations were different. So we're just trying to help them recognize those things. And instructor to instructor might be different. So we're trying to make sure we have those conversations. I want to start with an icebreaker with you though. It is called Cross the Line. And in this one, I know we're in a virtual environment. We don't really have a line that we can cross. But what we'll do is I'm going to pose a statement to you. And if that statement applies to you, then you'll just type line in the chat. Now, if you're uncomfortable with the statement, you do not have to denote that it applies to you. It's okay. First one, I love snow. The more, the better. Are you crossing the line because this applies to you or not? Oh, we have Amber who crossed the line. Excellent. Amber, why did you cross the line?
I like snow.
Yeah. And snow days and things like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Are you one who likes to observe it or play in it?
Since I have a child, probably play it.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Yeah, yeah. I think the kids help with that. Those snowmen or building snow people, things like that. Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. All right, here's the next one. Cheese pizza is my favorite. Ooh, we have two lines. We have Jennifer and we have Jack who crossed the line. Jen or Jack, you want to say why you like cheese pizza?
No frills. That's just kind of how I am.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, and I like extra cheese.
Don't put stuff on my pizza, just put cheese
Yes.
on my pizza. Yeah. Excellent. All right, here's the next one. I'm new to the college teaching profession. I think it's interesting because new can be relative, right? It kind of depends on how you're going to interpret that. But I don't think we have anyone new in here right now. I don't think we do. I could be kind of, maybe, but that would be more CCIT, but I'm a couple years, but there are actually people who are newer than me now. Woohoo! So, I'm on the seniority ranking now. So here we go. All right. Hi, Grace. Grace, we have a statement here. I have experienced disruptive student behavior. If this applies to you, you would type the word line in the chat. Oh, Amber and Jack have both experienced disruptive student behavior. Excellent. Amber or Jack, would you like to unmute? Tell us a little bit about it.
So for me, the most common is just like the chatting amongst the group that they're sitting in. And eventually that becomes kind of disruptive and distracting to everyone else.
Excellent, excellent. So nothing that was too in your face, but they just kind of get a little bigger than they should. Okay. And I wish I had more strategies to engage students and contribute to productive learning experience. Oh, I see lots of lines. That's good. That's good. And it doesn't imply that you don't have any. It means that you're like, I just want more. I want more. Excellent, excellent. And that's why we're here today, right? So in this activity for Cross the Line, we do want to make sure that we debrief about this activity. So there's a few questions I want to ask you. What feelings did you have during this activity? You can either type it or unmute.
I guess like nostalgia, maybe that's the wrong word, but just kind of thinking back on experiences, as soon as I saw the statement.
Okay, all right. Excellent. So you had maybe some thinking back on it. Sometimes when you do cross the line, you might have some trickier questions or some deeper questions, I mean, snow is kind of lighthearted, but do you like snow was the first one, Grace. And that's kind of a lighthearted question. So it might not say, oh, I had these deep, dark feelings, but maybe it was, no, I had these feelings. I can't believe that Amber likes snow. I like the beach. I can't believe that. Maybe those are some feelings that went through. How did you feel if you were one or if you were, just a couple people who had crossed the line and the other people didn't come with you?
I feel like slightly uncomfortable if you're the only one that crosses the line.
Yeah, yeah. And luckily, I mean, ours, I didn't think they were too weighty, but again, I participated in this activity in a workshop where it was a lot about diversity and inclusion. And so there were a lot of either questions about either racism or about how you had been treated if you felt like as a woman or as someone who was a certain gender or something like that, that if you had felt discriminated against. So you can see how it could be weightier questions, right? And then when you cross the line or don't cross the line, but that's why I wanted to be clear, even though we had light questions, like the second one was about cheese pizza, Grace. I mean, even though they were light questions, if you didn't feel comfortable admitting that, or accepting that statement as yours, you didn't have to cross the line. So it was giving people also still that agency. Did you make any judgments? Did you find yourself making judgments? Cheese pizza? How can they eat that? Oh my gosh. I don't know, Amber. I don't know. With a kid, I don't know. Sometimes cheese pizza was what we had, and then I just threw some extra stuff on it if I wanted it. I don't know.
Mine won't even eat pizza at all, so I can't judge anyone.
When I was teaching third grade, I had kids who said, I don't like pizza. And the other kids passed judgment right away. What? You don't like pizza? So, I mean, and did you feel influenced at all? And this can be positively or negatively. Like if someone else put line where you're like, oh yeah, I can say line, yeah. Or if no one was doing it, did you kind of wait for a second? So, I mean, you could say if you did or not, but those are some questions that we can debrief. I have a document that I can give you also that describes this activity. I'm going to put that in the chat for you. That cross the line, that gives you a description of how this activity could be done, particularly looking at student leadership groups. So I don't know, Jack, that might interest you in some of your other life that you have here too. But so some of those questions are a little deeper. There's more questions that you can ask in the debriefing, depending upon the types of questions that you ask. I think you can see the difference how if you were in class for this, you might have a real line or an imaginary line that students actually can move across the line, and you can observe how that feels to see, someone else move or someone move with you, or you're the only one who moves. You could, again, we talked about being able to ask some different kinds of questions. And then, and by the way, after you ask the question and people have moved, you don't have to wait for them to reset. You can just ask the question and they can just move themselves again. So it doesn't have to take a ton of time for this, but you can have light questions like I play a sport, or I'm nervous about this class, or maybe I'm nervous that I won't have enough time in my schedule to do well. These are ways you could kind of get that temperature check of your students at the beginning of the course too, or maybe even mid-course. It might be something you could do to check in with them. In Zoom, we just did that line, like you type line if you want to cross it or not, but you could also do, cameras off and then turn your camera on, or cameras on and turn your camera off, decide what works best for you. Asynchronous though, I would see this would cause maybe some challenges, because it's harder. It was a little easier, I think, plus we had easy questions, but it was a little bit easier for us to admit because at least we got some kind of feedback from the other people in the room. We saw somebody else typed line, or we could see people's faces, how they were reacting to the questions. Where we're in an asynchronous world, it might be difficult for me to say line, or that applies to me if I'm not getting any feedback from anybody else in real time. So a similar activity might be anonymous polling so that students don't feel like their names are attached to it. But then you as an instructor still get kind of that idea of, well, I have one student who likes cheese pizza, but I have these 4 students who really, weren't into that. And you can, or if you say, well, I do have 7 students in my class who feel very nervous about this time, I'm going to have to maybe give them a few tips about time management to help them. So we can approach it in different ways because of that. All right, any thoughts or questions about this activity across the line before we move on? So let's talk about instructor presence. This is a very important part. If we want to know what instructor presence is, the definition is still in development, really. There's a whole lot of good research about it. Incidentally, my dissertation was about this too. So I've studied a lot about this. But here's one definition that's pretty good. It talks about instructor presence. It's that interaction of the instructor. It's their communication style. It's the frequency that they communicate. It's how they give input into those class discussions or communications. And this includes whether you're face-to-face, if you're in a Zoom, or if you're an asynchronous teacher, that it happens in any of those places. Now we think, oh, face-to-face is so much easier though. But tell me, I'm sure you had an instructor at least once in your life. It was face-to-face, but it was still like they were a cardboard cutout up there. There wasn't much interaction. So we still need to think about instructor presence and be conscious about it, mindful about it, even in that face-to-face. It doesn't just magically happen. We need to think about it. And in community development, I hate to tell you this, but the onus is on you to start that classroom community. Whatever environment it is, you need to initiate it. Your students won't do that by themselves. Now, a couple might, because they've been in a cohort together, something like that, they might come to you, but you can't assume that just because they've been together in this cohort, they have the community developed, because you don't know what their experience was before they got to you. And you can help them deepen those relationships. So let's think about some of the ways you can increase your instructor presence. You can personalize your D2L. So this is through that instructor page where you give them information about you, adding photographs of you, maybe some Bitmojis to have a little bit of fun. Those are little graphic cartoon pictures of you. But it's also adding some video opportunities in your course as well, so that they get that increased social cueing. I use my hands a lot, you can tell, but you can hear my voice, my intonation, things like that. Have a communication plan that they can expect. On Mondays at 8 o'clock, you're going to get an announcement. This is important for your asynchronous courses, but it's also important even in your face-to-face courses. If they start to look for some information in their D2L course, that's going to help them. They don't meet with you again until Thursday. Maybe they need that reminder or that little prodding on Monday. Remember, you have an assignment that's due, and they've got life, they've got work, they've got all this other stuff that happens. Maybe they need that little push on a Monday morning at 8. I'm not saying it has to be Monday morning at 8, by the way. I just like to use it as my ticker. You would decide what was most appropriate for your course and your schedule. Give personalized feedback. We talk a lot about being more efficient, where we give the same feedback often. So we have these little pre-typed paragraphs that we go pull out of a doc and we pop into our assignment feedback for students. But I'd like to challenge you to give them at least one more sentence in addition to that, where you personalize it. Use their name, talk about something that they personally did, or give one example from their work that feeds into that general feedback, just to help them know exactly what you mean by that. And it's less generic then and more targeted. Mid-course surveys are important, and I don't think we do them enough. These can be done right in D2L. They can be anonymous surveys, but it's that opportunity for you to ask students, how's my instructor presence? Do you feel like you know me? And it doesn't mean we're going to be best friends and go have coffee together. It just means, do you feel like you can ask me questions? Am I approachable? And then you can ask them about the content and where they are with the content as well at that time. Support and resources, that's not all on you. That's telling them when your student hours are, of course, and maybe even having a little mini lesson at the beginning of your student hours. Research has shown that gets more students there. So even if it's, well, for 5 minutes, I'm going to be going over APA formatting, or for 5 minutes, I'm going to be going over this topic from our research or from our content that was a little tough for everybody. And then decide, maybe you record that, make it available for those students who can't make your student hours. But then it increases the likelihood that they'll attend. But you can also make them aware of tutoring opportunities, math and English tutoring opportunities, and even using the tutoring opportunities through D2L, so that they know about these resources that are available to them. One more thing, and this is a pro tip, and this isn't just for the asynchronous people, but it's a whole lot for the asynchronous people. Make sure your materials are current. Sometimes we can become complacent in those asynchronous courses, and we just copy them again. I'll copy them again. And we have this video that is, 20 years old. I don't know. But here's the difference. Maybe there is that video that's 20 years old, but it's still so good. It's not just that you don't want to replace it or find a better one. It's that it's so good, but it needs context. So what you do is you embed it into a page in D2L, or you give it a description that tells the students, listen, this video is 20 years old. You're going to see crazy haircuts, but this is so important. It's such a great description of how you can approach this, that's why I'm keeping it. You give them a context so they don't think it's an afterthought. They know it was intentional. So that's kind of how you can go about that. And whether that's for your face-to-face too. If you're going to show them an old video or show them an old example, tell them why you think that's still good. All right, here's a few more tips. Instructor presence in practice. We talked a lot about that introductory video, because I believe a lot in that video of them being able to see and hear your voice. This is excellent for asynchronous courses, but even your face-to-face, you email it before they get to you. It reduces their anxiety when they walk through that door, because they already have seen you, they've heard your voice, they know how to pronounce your name. And that's a big deal for a lot of students who are coming to these new settings, things like that. You have your weekly announcements that we talked about. You can schedule those in advance. That's why I'll send a Wednesday one, because then my Wednesday one is more targeted towards my cohort. My Monday one is kind of that one that you always send, right? Maybe a little bit of tweaking to it. It's also the opportunity to use video again. Your module overviews, you have a module or a unit, you give them directions, kind of a description of it. I think a lot of people are doing that. I'd like to suggest that might be a good place for video also, that when you're talking about an assignment, tell them the things that you really want to see in that assignment. Tell them what's been successful in the past. Tell them where students have struggled in the past. And it doesn't have to be long, and it doesn't have to be professional. Students love videos that are made on your phone. They want to hear the ums and the ers, because then you're a real person and then you're more approachable. Now, if it really deteriorates, edit it or scrap it and do a new one. But if it's just a little bit of, I'm thinking of the word, something like that, those are good examples for students, so that you feel like a real person. You're not just a wizard in a box, right? A few more. Provide your feedback. Make sure your feedback's frequent. At least once a week is what I'm seeing in the research. Now that could be once about a discussion board, once about an assignment, but at least have some kind of feedback opportunity in your course. Now, sometimes we get courses from other places because it's a department course. So it's being able to find those opportunities. You want to do it as soon as you can. If it takes too long to get back to students, then it feels like an afterthought. It doesn't feel important. They've already moved on to something else anyway in their mind, so it's not as valuable. Discriminating means that you're using predetermined criteria that you're rating their work against. So for instance, a rubric, or you've already talked about, here are the criteria. So it gives them something discrete that they're comparing their performance to, and that you're having a common conversation about that. And actionable. So we don't want to just say, well, here's where you did well, here's where you didn't do well. We want to say, this is how you can do better. or this is great, continue to do this, and this is why. Things like that. We want to give them actionable feedback because that's how they improve. Otherwise, a lot of times we just read it and we might not know how to internalize that so that we can get better. And be warm, even when it's not great feedback. I mean, even when it's that constructive criticism, we want to make sure that we provide it with language that's intentional, so that we want to be conscious of how we're delivering that. It doesn't mean that, again, you have to sugarcoat everything. But sometimes making a video, research has shown, if you have constructive criticism, at least they hear your voice, at least if it's audio, they hear your voice and they recognize that you want them to do better. Oh, and this is exciting. There's research out there that students in 2 different groups were provided the opportunity to revise papers they submitted. One of them was giving kind of general feedback like normal, and 40% of that group chose to revise their papers. The other group was given feedback that said, I know I have high expectations, but I know you can reach them. 80% of those students chose to revise their paper. So it was all in them feeling that support and feeling like they could do it. Collect that feedback. We talked about that mid-course feedback, but I wanted to say address that feedback. Be transparent about it. Say, yes, you did the survey. Thank you very much for your participation. I noticed that I had about this percentage of students who are saying, great job with those videos. I love them. Or the Bitmojis make me laugh. Thanks for that. Or I noticed that I had a percentage of students who said they really need checklists, that would help them be more organized. So I put some checklists in there for the rest of the semester. And you're helping them know, and it doesn't mean you can do everything they say, but you do the things that you can, and then you're transparent about the things that you did so they are heard. And even if it's anonymous, you won't be able to say, hey, Jack, I did that for you, right? But Jack will know that you did, and it makes a difference. All right, so I gave you some ideas here. So either these ideas that resonate with you and you say, oh yeah, I do that, or do you have any new ideas for the group about how you establish your instructor presence in your own learning environments?
I like these work very good strategies that you share. So thank you for that. The one that you said that to include, which is I love, is that when you said to tell the students our expectations for them are high, but we know that they could do it. I think that will help support them and encourage them to do better or to make the corrections and to try a little harder.
Oh,
So
fabulous.
I love that one.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you, Grace. Thank you for sharing that.
And using their names when you're giving the feedback is another excellent one. I do that quite a bit. And like you said, it personalizes it for them. It makes it seem like you are connecting with them.
Terrific. And that's a great point, because sometimes I find I'm trying to be conscious of, like, if I have an introductory discussion board, or I'll talk to you about some introductory video discussion boards. If they say, my name's Gracie, and they don't say Grace, they say Gracie, I try to use the name that they presented to me in my communication with them. I try to be conscious of it. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying.
That's great.
So I try to kind of eliminate the fear, at least for some of the younger students, of asking like quote unquote dumb questions, and just kind of like hammering home, like, if somebody needs to see it again, like, we'll go through it again. Like, you need to know this, like, it's important, and there might be others who, need help with the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe even talking about, bravery, courage. I don't know. Sometimes that helps too with some kids. Wow, thanks for being brave and asking for that again. Let's go, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It might work, might not. I don't know. You have to fill out your cohort. Excellent. Okay. Well, so now we're going to go deeper into developing that course community, because when we feel we're part of a community, we have responsibility to that community too. And a lot of times this will offset some of those behaviors that we might see, because now we have responsibility to each other in this course to not disrupt, to help us move forward. And you've just developed this relationship with your students as the instructor. There's also that relationship between you that they don't want to disappoint you. And it's interesting how that can affect how well a community can start to come together. Here's a definition about it, that the community building in the classroom or whatever space you have, whether it's physical or virtual, it's where the students and the instructors commit to each other that they're going to go towards this goal and they're going to collaborate towards it and have some interaction. So here's some ideas. We talked about greet students, and I love that Grace pointed out, she reiterated that use their names and helping to figure out their names. In the last Lunch and Learn, we did have one about name pronunciation, a little tip about name pronunciation and how important it really is. Because if we kind of like, send it off and we don't try to pronounce our students' names because maybe they're a little difficult, it really is kind of a microaggression. And we don't feel like we're demonstrating any kind of bias about it. It's just hard for us and we're trying, to move on. But unfortunately for that student, it can feel demeaning. Even if they've had it their whole life, they're kind of used to it now. But when you make that effort to try to pronounce their name correctly, it can mean so much to so many of your students, just that extra little effort. So that resource was in the last Lunch and Learn, but I can try to dig it up for you and put it in here too again. But in your greeting your students, you can do that through email, just as we talked about before. Email them before the class even starts. Open your course maybe a week early so that they can see that video that you made or hear that information, read that information that you've provided for them. D12 discussion boards, we talked a lot about those before, but I want to show you Flip. Are you familiar with Flip or have you used Flipgrid before? Can you type a yes in the chat for me if you have? It used to be called Flipgrid. Daniel, you used it in GO1. You might have forgotten what it was called, but maybe he's the only one. Okay, great. Okay, great. Because Daniel, I'm going to talk about you today. Is that okay? Okay. All right. So Flip, this is from Flip's website, that it's a video discussion app. It's a discussion board with videos. And it used to actually have kind of a freemium thing where some of it was free and then you had to pay for it. Well, Microsoft bought it and they said, we're making this free for everybody. So all of the features, everything's free. And originally it was really heavy in K-12, but it's expanded. I mean, people use it for book clubs, they use it for ASL teaching, and there's actually a certain portion of it that supports American Sign Language, ASL, being able to teach those things. And then it also, for instance, one of the band teachers during COVID, her students would play their music and then she'd be able to critique it and play it back for them so they could hear it. So it was an interesting way to also apply it. We're going to talk about it for introductions, but I'd like to challenge you to think about other ways you might be able to use this. All right. So I want to give you kind of the full picture. First, I'm going to show you what it looks like first, and then I want to give you a chance to kind of dive into it. Okay. So here's what it looks like. This is a flip that I made for us. Can you see it? Welcome to the flip for exploring video introductions and other uses. Did it change or no? Okay. Okay. So what happens is I created this and I do have a flip resource for you that teaches you, it's a flip resource guide that teaches you how to create these things. So, oh, what did I do with that? I'll find it. I'll get it for you. But it'll walk you through all of it. So, but I'll show you what it looks like. They make a video, and here's a video I made just this morning. Jenna was going to do the demonstration part of this. So I made the video real quick this morning. So anyway, that's why I took out the same clothes and everything. But anyway, so you can, oh, that's a terrible place to pause this. That's better. Okay. So this one, I can put a background on here. You can have lots of fun. You can put stickers on it. You can have filters so that, you can look a little more tan, whatever. But this one, I just put this background on here and I put music under it. For this, it's an opportunity to introduce. You can see kind of what it looks like. I teach abnormal psychology here as an adjunct, in addition to the neat thing about this, I use this in some different courses. It gives that opportunity for students to see you because you can do an introductory video, but then they can see each other. And this is nice for all of your courses, so they have the opportunity, because sometimes we spend all that time in our first course where we stand up and we say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I like, and this is an interesting thing about me, and I have another thing about that too, that gives you some different ideas besides just what's the interesting thing about me, if you like that approach. This is something that I can make available for students, and then they can respond to each other. So they can respond to each other by video or through text. So they can have a little video community where they meet each other before we even come to the class, or during that first week, I'm having that expectation that this kind of takes the place of my D2L introductory discussion board. So they have that opportunity to interact. They can put different things on the screen behind them. Daniel was fabulous in my G01 class. No, G10, was it Daniel? G10. Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. And he put up behind him a map of Taiwan. And then he was able to point out to us where he was from, and, and we could really have a better idea then. So imagine you could even have students use this for presentations. I do want to point out that when we put it up here, you don't have to worry about how they put it up and what device they use to put it up here, by the way. Sometimes you have students give you presentations and now you have to worry, can I download it? Did they record it right? Did they do all this stuff? This is all right here. It's self-contained. So it's something you might want to consider, and you can set different limits for it, but the maximum is 10 minutes. So if you have a 30-minute presentation, this doesn't work for you. But then again, 30-minute presentations are long. So, I mean, you can decide what, works for your presentation. Okay, you ready to try? Okay. All right. So here's a few tips for you in trying. When you try this, you won't be able to have your camera on, but you can still keep Zoom on. But you won't be able to have your Zoom camera on because it will think it's busy unless you want to use this QR code for your phone. Now, I don't think you have to download anything, but maybe if you use your phone, it might want you to do something with the app, but I think they changed it so you don't have to download the app anymore, but I don't know for sure. So I will also put the link in the chat in case you just want to do it on your computer. And there's the link. And then just give it a try, see what you like, couple of minutes. I'm going to set a timer. I'm so excited. Look, I learned how to find this timer in here in Canva, so it's really cool. So I don't know, you think, let's do 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Sometimes it's nice to have strange times on your timer for your students because we pay more attention to that. If we think 5 minutes, 5 minutes. But 4:48, we're 4:48, that's weird. And we actually pay attention to it. So, okay. So go ahead and pop over to the link and give it a try if you like. I'm going to try to be quiet, so I'm not in the background of your video. But if you have questions or anything, send them to me in the chat and I can type to you in there. All right, here's the timer. 10 seconds on the timer. Do you need more time? Don't worry, Amber, we won't judge the picture. I was trying to
post it. I was like, what?
Oh, there's Amber. Yay. Excellent. Welcome back, Grace. Welcome back, Jack. Yay.
So you could record an announcement in that, right?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't do
could.
that. Okay.
And sometimes there is a way, once you open an account with Flip, as an instructor, you need to open an account. You can set it up so your students don't have to open accounts to use it. You can create little videos too. So if you have just a little video you want to make, you can do it, but you like the background, you like what they have, things like that. You can create it in Flip. And then you can put it into your course and download it and put it into your course. It's a nice little tool.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Excellent. So we can see Amber didn't like her picture. And there is a way that you can change it, but it's at the very end and it says edit in the picture. It doesn't like make it flashy or anything like that. So it's easy to miss. So maybe that's something that's valuable to point out to students, say, hey, if you don't like that picture, maybe you want, So, but for Amber, she got she liked the beach too.
An instructor in the business department.
Excellent. She did put that she liked the beach
at the beginning.
I don't know why. Oh, it could be just the way my thing's playing. There you go.
Oh, she did it.
It was like that on mine too.
sure the
Oh, it
students
did?
really see you in the classroom, especially when you're in person. It's easy to kind of stand up by the
Terrific.
computer.
So the nice thing is now what we can do is actually we can even comment on Amber's, and we can tell her, I like what you said about being face to face, or really having that connection with students. We can comment on here, and we can do that in text. We can say, "Great job. I agree with your statements, and I like your beach choice." I can't spell today apparently. Beach choice. So we can respond that way and hit send. We can add our own video. Of course, mine's going to say, "Oh, your camera's busy, so it won't let me do it." But discard. Oh, cancel. There we go. I got back. So if you do that, you can make your own video though. So we can actually have videos where we talk to each other, or we can respond in text. But you can see how this could replace your initial discussion board in D2L and kind of give it some new life. And you can still require responses to each other. That's what I did in G10. I'm like, I still wanted people to respond to each other. So it's just another way that you could do it. But they had the opportunity. They needed to post a video to start with, but then I told them text or video is fine after that to be able to give them a choice. If you have anybody who's really self-conscious about the video, they don't have to have their face. They can have just the screen. So you can allow them to do just audio, and they don't have to have a video portion of it, but they're still able to participate in this activity, but they can have kind of that verbal contribution to it then. So and Jack did share with me a direct link to his, by the way. It opened over here though. Let's put it on this screen so you can see it. So here's Jack. He did not go the background route. So you can see.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Jack Bradley. I'm the administrative intern for professional learning and development. Today's topic is.
So it's nice. You can see that he just did this just regular. It's informal, and we're being able to get an idea of Jack here and get it and be able to share that idea. Good so far. So, and he shared that direct link in the chat with us. So you can do that as well. You can share a link. Okay. So how could you use Flip in your own learning environment? Are you inspired?
Yes,
Miss you, Amber. We'll miss you.
I'm inspired.
Excellent. How do you want to use it, Grace? How are you inspired to use it?
In the like you said in D2L,
Okay.
maybe put in an announcement. So you could put this link right into the course.
You can embed it in your course,
Hmm.
even, so they can interact with it on your D2L page. How cool is that?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Or
I just gotta learn to use it a little bit better.
yeah, the nice thing is I'll embed it in the course and I give the link. So if they want to do it inside that D2L page, they can, but if they want to have it bigger, they can go out to the direct link to be able to get to Flip. So, and you can do that, and I'll get that resource guide and that will help you, the reference guide, and that will help you. All right. So you want to maybe use it for introductions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we could use it for professional development as well. You know what I mean? It's be like, today we're going to talk about how to fill out a travel request, or something like that,
That's a great idea, because you can put the travel request up as your background even, and kind of point to it, poke at it.
Good point. Yep.
I don't know if you noticed, but you can move, it automatically moves your face. You can choose 3 different places for your face to be small in the corner, small in this corner, or big in the middle, like I was, and like Grace, or like Amber and Jack were. Or you can size your face and move yourself around on the screen. So you could even make yourself active. So you're pointing to different parts of that travel request to be able to show. Or if you have, I don't know, Jennifer might have a lot of documentation students have to fill out or know how to fill out. if she moves herself around on the screen, it's an interesting way to describe for them. How do you do it? It was making me think just for a second too, Jennifer, about that mapping thing that we did.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. And I've got sirens right outside my
Oh, no.
window on the traffic. So if you can hear that in the
I
background.
don't even hear it. Nope, you're good.
No, okay. They may have gone by. Yeah, so I played with it, but I wasn't able to figure out enough to, it kept saying I was muted, but I didn't see how you could get yourself like up in the corner. That I would like to use.
Terrific. Yeah. And if you look at that reference guide, that can be a first goal, but always reach out. If you want to reach out to me, I can help you directly. We can do like a tutorial. I have an old Lunch and Learn that was from when it was flip grid, but it's mostly the same. It's just like now it's pink instead of blue. Like the buttons are pink instead of blue, but a lot of the functionality is the same, but the features have grown. Like the backgrounds you can choose and the way you can do things have grown too. But I would be really happy to either come to you and sit next to you while we do it, or be able to help you remote like this, whatever works best for you. Okay, excellent. All right. There are some interactive activities I did want to just kind of point out. Our time is a little bit crunched, but because I like to overplan so that we're not sitting here twiddling our thumbs at each other. But these ideas are from Columbia University, but they collected them from research and put it together on a particular page. These are community building strategies. These are ones. So here, I'm just highlighting a couple today. But they have, oh gosh, I don't know, at least 15 on there, maybe more. And they have them categorized as kind of those social icebreakers that start at the beginning of class. And then they have ones that are more metacognitive, or getting students to think about thinking. And then they have ones that are more content-based. So I chose a metacognitive one and I chose a content-based one because we had already kind of talked about the social icebreakers earlier today. The first one I want to point out, this is called goal ranking. This might take a little bit of thick skin to do this one, because you take the course objectives that you have, maybe these are your CCPOs, right? And you present them to the students and you let them rank them according to the importance to their life. So this is a community development activity though, because they're looking at what are the goals of this course and how they align with me. Now it's interesting for me, for instance, I teach abnormal psychology, right? So some of those students are there because it's a requirement for future coursework. Some of the students are there because they need credits, right? But some of the students are there because they know someone who has been diagnosed with bipolar in their life. And so they'd like to learn more about bipolar in addition to needing it as a course or as a credit. Other students, perhaps in their job, they tend to interact with people who demonstrate some maybe abnormalities, and they want to understand them more. So some of the students come and have a professional reason, some have a personal reason, and then some it's purely academic too. So it's a varying thing. Getting kind of a temperature from the students of what their approach is helps me kind of target and craft how I present the information then. Because I think it's one of our jobs, I guess, I'm trying to think of them. It's a requirement for us, right? To help the students recognize how our objectives serve them in their world, whether it's professionally or personally. It is our job to help them realize that when they say, well, when am I ever going to use this? We want to have an answer, right? So this helps us dive into that a little more deeply. We ask students to write their personal learning goals and compare them to how they've ranked these objectives in the course. We let students talk to each other about it in maybe a pair or a small group, because we're not going to have everyone share out and have this big presentation about it. But then as an instructor, I would collect this. So I get an idea. Now I don't have to have their names on it really. I mean, I decide if you care or not, but I care more kind of what's the general sense of the course than I care if Jennifer was saying that this means nothing to me. Maybe I don't care who, but if I notice that I do have a student who's like that, I know I have to work a little bit harder to make sure that this is a really relevant course. Do you see what I mean? But here's an idea. So I took these from a math class. And it's A, B, C, or D. Just take a minute, look at them, and kind of rank them according to their importance in your personal or professional life. You kind of decide A, B, C, or D. So you might put, B, D, C, A, or something like that is what I mean. And just type it in the chat. I see B, Daniel. Do you mean that's the most important one for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Okay. Evaluating mathematical model. Well, you're an engineer. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anybody else? Oh, I see a B, C, A, D. So Jack also liked that mathematical models. He felt like that was important for him. And then it looks like demonstrating fundamental probability techniques, and then developing conclusions about data, and then, oh, no, yeah. And then he rounded out with defending the rationale of decisions based on mathematical evidence. But Jennifer had a completely different order. And so did Grace. But Jennifer and Grace both saw more value in demonstrating fundamental probability techniques in order to draw outcomes, make decisions, evaluate outcomes of decisions. One of the things I looked at, for instance, for A, for me, I looked at it as an instructor, right? You get information from their assessments or from surveys that they take, and then you need to make these decisions based upon this quantitative information that you have, or qualitative in the case of some of the surveys, right? But that's information. I thought, well, yeah, I guess that one is valuable to me. But when I first looked at it, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I really use that much. But yeah, I use a lot of data and try to think about, well, where do I put more of my weight, which is kind of a proportional reasoning, right? And where do I spend more of my time? So that's how, when I was looking at how I kind of saw it. Okay. So, but again, see how this might take some thick skin, because if your students were like, yeah, none of it matters to me, and you love the course, oh, that's one of the things I forgot to, in your instructor presence, make sure you show them how much you love the course. And if you don't love the course, find some reason you love the course so that you can give them some excitement, some energy. They're going to love it more if you love it. All right, now here is the next one. This is interactive activities course content mapping. Now, this one's a little bit abstract here, but what you do is you're asking students to map out a concept that's central to the course. So for instance, if it's a history course, your question might be, how do we learn about the past? Now you want students to represent that. Now, the idea is graphically through concept mapping. You can see here's a few different ideas. One's more like a flow chart. I don't really care, but how are they representing their information? You might get students who really make an outline, and that's the best they can do, because that's how they think. So it's okay. But you're just asking them for that representation. You give them a chance to share with each other and to present out. Now, if you're in your Zoom class, this might involve shared whiteboards. If you're async, you can still do group projects like this asynchronously. It just might take a little bit more thought how you set these up from the instructor to be able to get them started in asynchronous and help them realize how they can connect with each other, or how they can also work asynchronously because their job schedules might not match up. Maybe one person needs to work at 4 a.m. On this project. That's the only time they have. So it's being able to help them envision those. And I'd like to caution you that if you do decide to do that, make sure you have evaluation for both group activity, but also individual. So that way, if they're in a group that just doesn't work, they can still survive the project, right? All right, here's just a few question examples. I thought they were interesting. We've got, is fair always equal? Is equal always fair? So they would draw some representations of that. Who is an American? Maybe how does engine design affect performance? Or what makes a robot affective? Look, there's an A in there. So what makes you think they have emotion, right? So it's trying to think about that. So you could see how these could apply. I tried to choose ones from different subject areas. I just want to thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate your participation. I'll put the link in the chat, but when you leave the meeting, it does show up also. Please make sure you give me some data to look over so I can make those proportional decisions and move forward and make sure that these workshops meet your needs. And if you have any questions or anything, I'll stick around to be able to answer any questions, but I wanted to make sure I respected your time. Look, I'm right on noon. There we go.
Thank you. This was good.
Oh, thank you, Grace. So nice to see you again.
You're
Yeah,
good to
thank
see you
you.
too.
Thank you, Aurora.